what we're here to talk about today is really the potential supply chain challenges that we're already experiencing to some degree, what we can expect in the future, and how the various product types that we provide in housing might be affected by those over the course of the coming months. So these are real. We talk about labor shortages, but we also talk about material shortages as well. And I think that, if there were headwinds coming to us in the future, those two would probably be towards the top of the list. So we're fortunate today to have the conversation led by our own Christopher Brown, who I believe is on the phone. I have not seen his smiling face here. Is Christopher on, Angela?
No, not yet, but he will be shortly.
Okay. And Christopher is going to give us his perspective. And he's there kind of in an interesting one because his company does an awful lot just in terms of traditional sales on the regular housing stock, as well as now over the course of the last 2 years have been building both custom and spec homes in a variety of different markets, from downtown that has a lot of challenges associated with just the logistics and getting product delivered to the site, as well as more traditional larger homes that are in the suburban areas and actually in the mountains up near Colfax. So with that, those are kind of the things that I think we're interested in talking about today. And while we're waiting for Christopher, what I'd like to do is I see a couple of purchasing directors on the line. So maybe if Betsy or Luke, you guys can kind of kick off some initial observations you might have while we're waiting for Christopher to join us, of challenges that are kind of front and center for you as we move into the summer months.
And Christopher has just arrived.
Good morning.
Oh, well, we can move to Christopher. Okay, we'll get to you guys in just a second. Christopher always likes the big splashy entrance. There you go. So Christopher, we're happy to have you. We're happy to have you today as our expert leading the conversation on this important subject matter. So take it away.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. Sorry for the late arrival. Early morning phone calls tend to take a little longer than they need to be. So good morning. I'm Christopher Brown with Next New Homes Group. Joining me today is Betsy Barbosa and Luke Young of Meritage Homes and Cressley Homes, respectively. We're here to our first of several, hopefully, 30-minute hot topics. And so today we're going to talk about supply chain challenges. And we've all been experiencing them, and we're all trying to figure out which end is up and what's new. And we all had this expected slowdown where everybody kind of took a little bit of break, and then everything went absolutely nuts. And now we're trying to play catch up, and our suppliers are trying to play catch up. So before we started, I wanted to get into just a little bit of background about what's going on in the market. So our sales in June were our highest sales in 10 years. During a meltdown and a stay-at-home order, we have the highest sales in 10 years. Not only the highest sales in 10 years, but the highest sales in June over June by 29%, just from last year. So, I mean, that's just absolutely crazy numbers that we're dealing with in the midst of national news that shouldn't be as bright as it is. Part of this increased sales in June is we had a slowdown in April and May. Some of this is a little bit of pent-up demand for people that chose not to choose in March, April, May. So we're seeing a little bit of that spike, but still overwhelmingly positive news right now. Then we've got price increases, not significant, very healthy, 2.7% price increases for the year. So we're doing really good as a balanced market. And the scary part, and this is what plays into the rest of our conversation today, is we only have 1.2 months of supply in the general Sacramento market. And now that's the 4 Sacramento Valley counties. 1.2 months of supply is ridiculous. We're the only ones that can make up that supply because we're not seeing enough homes coming on the market, but we also can't build a lot. So we certainly have a challenge going forward. So let's get into the conversation. Let's start out with Betsy, and what are you seeing on your end, and what are some of the challenges?
Good morning. For Meritage, ours mirrors the sales that everybody else is seeing, record-breaking sales. And then to your point, the effect of that is seeing our manufacturers trying to scramble to fill orders, flooring, sinks, tile, you name it, everybody is struggling, and they're having to find their new norm. You know, their production was cut off, and then once they were allowed to reopen, they're having to reopen under all of these new conditions with social distancing and all of the parameters that come with opening under this new COVID scare that we're dealing with. And so we're finding that they are having a very, very difficult time in trying to meet all of the demands, not just getting back to what was a sort of normal before all of this happened, but now this accelerated demand with all of the new sales, all of the numbers that are coming in are just staggering for these manufacturers and suppliers to try to meet the demand. So that's the fight that we're fighting. Thankfully, I think communication has been fantastic, and they're definitely trying to move as much product as quickly as possible. So I think it's been, you know, everybody's trying to navigate this, but at least I can say that they're present and they're working through all of the challenges with us.
Luke, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. You know, one of the tough things about this market and how fast we're moving and the stop is that it's not one trade or one specific area where there's faltering. It seems like every week I get another call. Hey, we didn't get this delivered. Hey, we didn't get this delivered. And it goes everywhere from countertops to flooring to plumbing, like Betsy was saying. You know, as we go through that, it becomes very relevant that we talk to the suppliers. You know, we've done that in the past, but now it has been a need where when I see something isn't in and we need to move forward, instead of going to the vendor and the vendor then going to the supplier, you know, I just call up the supplier and say, is this an issue? You know, we also look at our options and what we're offering and find out if we're offering something that's going to be an issue in the future. You know, that's another step that we have to take is, okay, you're not getting this type of product now. Is this a one-off, or are you not manufacturing enough and we should take it off of our option change? So, you know, it's just constant, and it's coming from all areas, as many of you have seen, and getting to know all the suppliers better and having them on speed dial almost has been really the only way to try to stay above it.
Yeah, Luke, I think you bring up a good point. I think the biggest challenge, and the three of us have talked about this, you know, prepping for this, is that forward planning communication and understanding, okay, here's my challenge group, and all of a sudden I've got a whole bunch of that group that's got to be coming up next, talking to them and going, how do we work through this? You know, can we alter some of our spec to better match the supply chain, or are we just kind of managing our supply chain a little bit differently? You know, I think that's some of the key, and I think you guys have done a phenomenal job at that. What are some of the key? Go ahead.
Oh, it is the key. I mean, there are some products that used to be readily available that aren't. And so, you know, it's finding out, hey, are our standards okay? And I know each one's a little bit different. Each builder is, but here at Cressley, we offer a number of options. So then it's going through everything and pointing it out and saying, is this an okay product, or should I pull it for 3 months because you're not going to be manufacturing? And that has to come from the supplier himself.
Right. Or we're finding that builder channel is the same product, the same tile, or the same carpet for several national builders. And so now it's not just a challenge for Meritage, it's a challenge for all of these other builders at the same time. And that's been really difficult too, because I think, you know, ideally when they're selling these products to us on a national level, the theory was, well, we can mass produce it and we'll be fine. But now they're having to adjust those numbers, but our numbers are going up. And so that's been really difficult too, to have the fight for who's going to get that piece of carpet, or who's going to get that box of tile, or whatever those products are.
So along those lines, and obviously, you know, all three of us are kind of coming from different spectrums of our industry. Is that, are you altering, you know, especially with the national contracts, are you altering some of your base spec yet to not have what everybody else has, to try and see if that's got a better supply?
For us, it's really difficult because our corporate office decided that we would do, in our entry-level product, we would do nationally determined packages. So the products that we're offering on a national level so that all divisions are installing the same thing. So for us, it's really, really difficult to go in and adjust some of those. But we're having to just go back to, whoever the supplier is and say, hey, can we tweak it just a little bit? Is there a little bit shade different, or is there something very similar that we can put in that would feel the same as what we're supposed to be offering in these packages?
Right. For us, we haven't seen a standard product that we use really have an issue in terms of supply. We've had hiccups, but every time I have the discussion with the supplier, it's just a hiccup and not, no, you should be switching your base. So we haven't had to do that. It has been more unique items that we see, hey, we're not going to be able to get this. It's similar when that factory for sinks, I don't know if anyone else remembers, but went down, and they said we're just not going to be able to get this type of sink for 6 months. And so we're kind of seeing that, not that factories are going down, but they're just not going to produce it because they have to produce the other items, so they're doing a give and take.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the challenge right now. We're looking at, for our side, for our building operations is, appliances are a challenge, and, and for a variety of reasons. And some of it comes down to simple trucking and getting stuff physically here because the trucks are so bombarded and there's only so much capacity there. But certainly lumber is, always been a challenge, always will be a challenge for all of us. And now we're seeing that lumber supply even affecting our cabinet deliveries because they're not able to get the lumber into the cabinet shop to be able to build the cabinets. So it's definitely a unique challenge, and what used to be the awesome opportunity for all the bigger builders to have these national contracts pre-COVID, all of a sudden becomes this weird detriment now. Well, now I'm kind of stuck because I'm stuck with this, so I can't alter it to this thing that happens to be available on the West Coast.
Right.
How are you guys seeing this? I know we've got challenges all over, and certainly from a COVID standpoint, we've got labor challenges, both positive and negative. How are you seeing this affecting your production cycle right now?
I think for us, knock on wood, our trades have been amazing. They've stepped up, and thankfully they've been able to keep their employees safe and healthy. And so we really haven't had too much of a delay or a hiccup in our production timing so far, knock on wood.
Yeah, ours are similar. Our trades have really stepped up when this first happened. I did mass emails to trades. Hey, this is what we're doing. We're still moving forward because there was that uncertainty. There's not that anymore. And so you have a lot of the trades, proactively coming out. Hey, when's the next release? Hey, when can I get this going? And the only things we hit I feel are pretty normal summer issues, which happen every summer, no matter what's happening, is that everyone's pushing really hard, and so sometimes it'll be, 1 week, hey, this trade was 3 days late, and then the next week a completely different trade, but not specifically COVID related or labor related, other than our regular issues.
Yeah, most definitely. One quick reminder for everybody that's watching, if you've got questions as we kind of go through this, throw those in the chat, and we'll try and answer those as we wrap up in this last 10 minutes here. So going forward, where do you guys see the adjustment? Luke, I think that's a really good point that, we are part of that, normal summer busy cycle. But we also have a 2-month gap leading into this. So where do you see this going forward? How is that going to change?
I think direct relation with the suppliers has already changed, and I don't see that going back. I would say I've always had a contact with a supplier, and I've always kind of known exactly who I could contact if an issue came up. But it seems like, for me anyway, it's been a lot more efficient just to go to them. Not to say that our trade partner can't do it and get the answer, but when I'm seeing a delay, it might be easier to go to the supplier and say, hey, is this going to be ongoing, or can I just expect this for the next 2 homes, or these are the houses I need this on? Can you search for it, find it, and make it done, and then I'll pull the option, or I'll change the spec or something like that. So, I think it's that communication where it used to be the trade partner solely working on that, and then I would only jump in an emergency. I feel like I'm going to be more communicative with the suppliers than I've ever been, and I don't see that changing.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's taking the time to get out ahead of it. To Luke's point, it's not just in an emergency, but if we have a list of lots that we know are coming up and these are our close of escrow dates, we're sharing that more with the manufacturers directly so that they can plan accordingly. They can, allocate the right resources to the right locations. And then hopefully that pre-planning helps us keep our close of escrow dates, keep our customers happy, and not have to push things around.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions that came up, which is actually we've been seeing a lot of challenges, is with COVID and the challenges that we're seeing and the adjustments to how we operate on the job site. How are you guys dealing with inspections, and how has that changed during this time?
I think it's been really difficult trying to deal with the cities, not just with inspections, but trying to pull permits ahead of time, trying to get plans approved when we're going for new communities. I mean, it's the entire length and breadth of what we do with a municipality has been so difficult. But thankfully, some of the municipalities have allowed us to do video chats for inspections or self-inspections because they have a rapport with that construction manager. So I think that they're trying to help us work around some of the difficulties, but yes, you're right. That's been a really, really hard channel for now.
I agree. One thing that we've gone through is that it used to be semi-easy and semi-seamless to get an inspector out there. Now it's making sure you schedule way in advance and separate it, and definitely have a clear view of we're going to have this inspection specifically on this day, and then the next house will be this day and this day, and you can't wait on setting that up, and you can't be wrong about setting up those dates where you had a little bit of room previously, and now I don't see any room to wiggle. It's you better set that and you better be right, otherwise it's going to be a long wait.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that, and certain counties versus cities are easy versus we would want to enlist the BIA to have some sterner conversations with those people. And that's always been the perpetual. So thank you to Michael and the staff for helping us with those challenges as we deal with that. A couple of other questions here. Have you experienced any cost increases due to scarcity?
I wouldn't say due to scarcity. No, I think if anything, they're trying to hold their prices where they are because they know that this process has been so much more difficult. I mean, obviously lumber is the one outlier to that, and that, we're all living through the scary roller coaster of the lumber market right now. But,
Yeah.
Other than that, no, I haven't seen increases in that manner.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen that either. And if they started coming in, I would probably try to push back on that and say, well, why? Why is there an increase when you have less staff on, when I can't get the product? That shouldn't be an increase. We'll see how far that would go if I had that conversation, but I would definitely try to have it.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing increases, but they are much more materials cyclical increases than they are this short-term COVID increases in a scarcity-driven increases. So I think that's good. Let's see. I'm just trying to scan through some of these questions here real quick. Are you seeing anything with challenges from raw materials coming from abroad that's affecting your supply chain?
A little bit. I think some of the electrical components and some of the HVAC components, those are the two that I've heard that have had some effect on the market. But again, it hasn't been horrible. I think, they're doing the best that they can, or they're changing where their resources are coming from. They're moving out of Asia and into Europe or into Mexico or into some of these other locations or it's not as difficult to get the product here from there.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, those tariffs before COVID hit actually pushed a lot of people to change that already. So those were already in motion. So I really haven't seen that be an issue of the international.
Yeah, I think we as an industry are historically American made anyways. And so I think that's been less of a challenge. While we do certainly have parts and components here and there, I think that's an interesting piece that we don't necessarily see the bigger supply chain issues that we're seeing in other industries that it makes the national news, because we are predominantly a locally made product, and even most of our supplies are relatively locally made. So that makes us a little more immune. As we get in the last couple minutes here, let me see if there's one other item in here. Any other insight that you guys want to offer us?
I would say that just looking at these sales numbers, one, I'm very excited. These sales numbers are unbelievable, and it shows that there is a need. We're still on the short side of the supply, which is helpful. The interest rates are really helpful. We just got to keep pushing and telling people, hey, we're building houses, come out and buy. And people are doing it, so that's really positive. We're going to run into issues as always, as purchasing or suppliers or vendors or anything like that. But it's been great working with the teams that we work with, because everyone seems to know, hey, this is a great opportunity. Let's push as fast as we can, as hard as we can, and we're going to help everybody succeed. So it's been great to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Communication is the key, and I think just keeping those channels open helps everybody be more successful.
Yeah, I think that's, guys, our critical piece in this. We've got some great suppliers on here, we've got vendors on here, and we've got builders on here. So this is the perfect audience to have this kind of conversation. So the more that we're all talking and giving us a heads up of, hey, I've got this coming down, I've got this shortage coming up, I've got this oversupply, wherever those are, the more that we can communicate. And that's the whole point of this Hot Topics conversation. So if you guys have ideas for hot topics that you'd like to see over our next couple of months as we plan these, I'd love to see those. I also wanted to acknowledge our sponsors for today that made this possible: Fusion Sign and Design, IRG Integrated Resource Group, and Mass Mutual Northern California. And then I also wanted to throw it off to Mr. Stretch and to give us a little shout out about Breakfast Bun coming up.
Yeah, well, thank you, Christopher. Well, two quick things, because I can't just do one. You know how I am. I'd like to invite anybody on this telephone call, or anybody that's in your office, if you are having any problems with regard to scheduling inspections, the permit process. We have been working since March 16th with every city and every county, and getting commitments from them in terms of their level of customer service during the scope of the pandemic. And I think for the most part, they're doing an okay job. I don't think they're doing a great job. I think they're doing an adequate job. But we want to help them do a great job. So if you're having any problems, we can go in there and have that big picture conversation without them knowing where that feedback came from. We can just say, we heard from multiple builders and we really want to help you work through this. What can we do to help? And when we do that, sometimes things, suddenly get better. Because we recognize the need to not have any self-inflicted delays based upon the city kind of tripping the process up. So let us know what we can do to help. We'd love to be a part of that. So Breakfast Blend, let's see, you're putting me on the spot. I'm going to say it's August 6th. I think that's the right.
You're right.
Yes.
Thursday, yeah.
We're going to get together with the executive committee and just have a conversation about where things are in the market, how this has impacted, collectively all of our businesses. It'll be great because we've got two big builders and two big developers, all of which will either be chair of the BIA or has been the chair of the BIA. And they're going to talk candidly about what they're feeling, and whether it's Taylor Morrison or KB, Adam Heeb with KB, or Aaron Bazzacco with Taylor Morrison, Michael LaFortune of course, with GenCorp, Aerojet, Rocketdyne. There's lots of different names to that company. The guy that has all that property south of Highway 50 in Rancho Cordova to Folsom. And then finally, Phil Rodriguez. And Phil's insight is always interesting. Unfiltered, just a conversation about where we are, where we've been, and where, most importantly, they think we're going. We'll be taking, of course, questions from the crowd, and it'll be a very, very rapid fire opportunity to kind of have those conversations directly with our executive committee. I feel blessed because they're just such a great group of people to work with, and sharing their insight, I think, with the rest of the crowd will be very helpful. So you'll see information on that over the coming weeks, but please try to join us. Again, it's August 6th in the morning. I don't know the time.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. It's an hour session, and we look forward to seeing you there. So thank you.
And I'm looking for sponsors too, by the way.
Of course.
Always.
All right, as we wrap up, I wanted to say a special thank you to Betsy and Luke for taking your time out to do this. This is huge. We will hopefully continue this with much more topics as we continue throughout the year. And go forth and prosper, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christopher.
Thank you all.
Betsy, Luke, thank you.
You're muted,
You're
Angela.
on mute. Angela, you're on mute.
So my dog was not on mute, but I was. But oh no, Brian with Fusion is just joining the call right now. But Brian, thank you for being a sponsor. We just ended the event, but we did give you a shout out.
He's on mute too.
Yeah. I can't even get to him. So anyway, I thought that went really well, you guys.